Hey, it's Rod Yates here. Welcome to another episode of Humans of Music, a Jaxsta podcast. Each episode, I talk to a music creator or industry professional about their life and career, the ups and downs of their journey, and the lessons they've learned. And my special guest today is Joan Wasser, also known as Joan As Policewoman. So Joan has just released her latest album, The Solution Is Restless. The record came together in a really interesting way. One night in 2019, Joan got together in a Paris studio with guitarist, songwriter and producer Dave Akumu and drummer and Afrobeat legend Tony Allen. They pressed record and just spent a few hours jamming. Then when the world went into lockdown, Joan took the music they created back to her apartment and used it as the foundation for this album. It's another chapter in what's been an incredibly colourful career. Joan played violin in the Boston University Symphony Orchestra before spending much of the 90s on the road with indie rockers the Dambuilders. She then went on to perform with artists like Antony and the Johnsons and Rufus Wainwright, and do session work with people like Lou Reed, Nick Cave and Sheryl Crow, as well as developing her solo career as Joan As Policewoman in the early 2000s. In the late 90s, Joan also formed a band called Black Beetle with former members of Jeff Buckley's group. Jeff was Joan's boyfriend at the time of his passing in 1997, and she talks in this interview about the importance of Black Beetle in helping her and Jeff's bandmates deal with their grief. But we start the interview by talking about Joan's new album, The Solution Is Restless, and what the mood was like in that Paris studio with Dave Akumu and Afrobeat legend Tony Allen.
I mean, it was really great. So I was on tour at the time. So I flew in that afternoon and went directly to the studio. And then Dave was there already because he had taken the Eurostar over from London, and we hadn't seen each other for a second. So it was really fun to see him. And then we set up our areas. I had keys and vocals, and he had a bit, we were figuring out what effects maybe he'll use in the bass. And they had already set up his drums with Tony's specs. So the drums were just sitting there, and Dave and I were hanging out, and then Tony arrives, and he pretty much goes directly. I mean, we hang out for a little bit, but he pretty much goes to the drums, and he puts out on the headphones, and he said, "Where's the click?" And I said, "Actually, I'd rather not use a click. Is that okay?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, yeah, okay." I was like, "I just want it to be free, And he was like, "Okay, great." So I think from the start, he felt like, oh, this is a relaxed environment. I purposely came in with no prepared music. I wanted to just start with an open book, Yeah, so it felt really exciting to just find grooves together and then float on them for a while, and then they'd break down and we'd move into something else.
Sure.
And yeah, it felt really relaxed and great. Yeah.
Yeah. How long was that initial session? And then how much music or how many ideas did you emerge from that session with?
I think we played probably an hour and a half, then had a big dinner and played another hour. That was it.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I told the engineers to never stop recording.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, so the songs that I created from those tracks, some of them use the same drums. Some of them literally each measure are different hits from different places in the night of recording. And then some of them are just straight up loops, and then I would just start a new song over a loop. The first track is like that, The Barbarian. It's just a 2-bar loop of Tony. And then I just wrote a song just over that. Yeah, so in every way, those drums and bass and some of my keys survived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the intention was there any intention when you were doing that initial session? Did you think this is going to lead to something, or was it just let's play?
Yeah, I mean, I did plan on doing something with it. What that would be, I didn't know. I just knew I wanted to play with Tony, and he was really up for it.
Yeah.
So I figured what better way than to just let it be completely free and see what happens? I mean, I've been in awe of him for so long. I feel like I didn't want to I know this sounds strange maybe, but I didn't want to push anything previously created on him. Like I really wanted to create a thing together because I have so much awe for him, and I just honor his whole trajectory and his way of elevating music. It really just I always feel like I use the word just it floats.
Yeah. Given your appreciation of his work, what was that moment like in 2019 when Damon Albarn introduced the two of you?
Well, he introduced us after I had made a joke and I heard a laugh from my left, and then I looked over and it was Tony. So it started laughing.
Nice.
Which is a good first communication. Laughing is a good start. Yeah, we just hit it off. It was as if we had known each other for a long time.
Okay.
He's really easygoing. I mean, I got to play with him a bunch during that. And I just, it was really as if we had known each other for a long time, right from the start. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So what was the timeline then? So when was that recording session in Paris? And then when did you start putting these songs together?
The recording session in Paris was at the end of November, middle of November.
2019?
2019. Yep. Yeah. And I continued to be on tour for another month, and I got home and I didn't listen to the tracks. I was finishing another album. I was finishing my second covers record. Mm-hmm. And then I was supposed to go on the road in the spring, and then just everything went crazy. And all of a sudden I had all this time, and I thought, lucky me, I have these sessions that I get to make whatever it will be, now. And I mean, it turned out that the engineer and I were the only two people that were really allowed in the studio, because the studio owner took off with his family. Mm-hmm. And so Adam played a huge role in making this record. Adam and I both live on our own. Mm-hmm. And so we would bike to the studio and meet and really just edit, listen and edit. And we were each other's pod.
Okay.
Yeah. We were, know. I mean, that song Dinner Date, I sort of named just our dinner break every night as our dinner date, just to make it fun. Yeah. That song is because it felt so just apocalyptic. It was, we just got to make it to the dinner date and we'll know that we stayed alive another day.
Right. At what point, and Tony very sadly passed away on April 30th last year, 2020. Were you working on the record at that point? Had you finished it? What stage were you at with the record?
I was at the very beginning of composing the songs from it. Yeah, I was in the studio when I got the call about Tony. So that was really a very strange, and I mean, it just felt totally not real, Nothing did at that time if you didn't see it, because it was just, wow. What I had experienced from him was that he lived life to the fullest. For instance, he loved recording with Dave and I because it was something he had never done. Right. He just wanted to do new stuff. Mm-hmm. He's 79 and he's curious. And that is a way to live. That is a way to stay happy and joyful and just, in awe of the world, if you just are always doing new stuff. Yeah. And it just really felt like he was that way.
Yeah. Did it I mean, did you feel an extra weight of responsibility to now that you were the caretaker of these beats that he had put down to obviously you would have treated them with love and respect, but did it feel like you had to do that even more so after his passing?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Also, he wasn't there to hear it as it got written. I was planning on having his voice in there, quite a bit. And so then I just had to steer the ship on my own. I would have been steering it anyway, but I was excited about sending him stuff and, and just getting his feedback on it. And because, like, for instance, when I would finish a track, then I would send it to Dave to put guitar on, and so there, all of a sudden I didn't have that. So I just had to live in some sort of, faith that I would do something he would feel good about. I mean, it's his drumming, so.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You've said in the past that you make songs to help yourself deal with huge emotions. Were there particular emotions you were dealing with on this record? I mean, obviously it being made in lockdown, was that a significant contributor to where you were going lyrically on the album?
Yeah, a few weeks before Tony died, one of my closest friends and definitely my mentor died of COVID.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah. Died at the height of COVID in New York City, where there were thousands of people dying a day. And he was one of them. And he wasn't someone that was going to die ever. People like that.
Yeah.
And it was his birthday the day before. And I was talking to him and he said, just don't get this, this evil thing, but in a couple of weeks I'll be okay. And then the next morning he was gone.
Wow.
And that was absolutely devastating. I still haven't really accepted it in a certain way. So, and then 3 weeks later, Tony died. So I think all of my records are death is a main theme in all my records. But then here it is again. I mean, the opening of Get My Bearings says, what will you do with the rest of your day, with the rest of your life? You don't know the sun will rise tomorrow. So that's where my head was. Wow. What are we doing right now? We got to make it really worth it. I mean, and part of that was I got to make this record something that is really, really says something that I want to say, because I could also not be here. I mean, that's true anyway.
Sure.
But being in New York City at that time was so horrifying. No one was outside. The only thing you heard was ambulance sirens. And whenever you saw people, it was just the EMT people, pretty much in plastic, taking people out in stretchers. It was crazy. I don't even watch movies, and I know it was a movie. I mean, it was so hard to believe.
It's such a strange environment to create in, I would think, unlike anything you'd ever experienced. Just seeing that you mentioned you were riding to the studio. If you're riding past that every day, that must put you in a unique headspace.
Well, it was so interesting because I've ridden my bike forever, and I ride it in New York City, which a lot of people think I'm crazy for doing, but I am really just obsessed with being free, and so I've always just done it, and it is chaotic, and you do have to sort of ride as if it's your last pedal, because people don't know how to drive with bikes. Oh, there's a lot of places in New York City that don't have proper bike lanes. and just people are in a rush here.
Mm-hmm.
They have to get in front of someone else so they can get there first, whatever, And what was interesting is there was no one on the street, including cars, including trucks, including everything.
Wow.
So, first of all, it was unbelievably quiet.
Mm.
But then riding to the studio, I could go many minutes without seeing one vehicle. That's just not,
Crazy.
That's impossible to explain living in New York City, how profoundly odd that is.
Yeah.
So on top of the really just crazy feeling that we were all dying, at the same time, it was incredibly peaceful.
Mm.
And then once I was home, once I got here and closed the door, it was okay, I'm safe.
Right.
So I did so much of the writing I have a studio at my apartment. I did all of the singing and all of the string playing. I did tons of overdub, multi-tracking string, all the string stuff. So I did all of that at my apartment. And often it was in the middle of the night because that's just sort of when when it happens for me. First of all, it was an incredible way to shut off what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And, just create. But then it was also quiet enough for me to do all of that recording there. So, it was really multifaceted and just sort of clearly indescribable climate. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Joan, I wanted to talk to you about, your path to this point. I know you were raised by your adoptive parents, Dick, who I believe is a research chemist, and Pauline, who is a Latin teacher. And I understand that both were quite pivotal in your developing a love of music. In the song To Survive off that album, you sing about your mother singing to a baby. And I think I've read quotes from you in the past where you've spoken about your dad also used to sing to you and sing with you. The lyric in To Survive, there's no one here who means you any harm. Is that what that felt like, to have your mother sing to you like that? Can you even remember that?
The thing my parents were supportive of my interest in music, which was just great. They also both sang in community choirs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of where they met.
Right.
So, yes, that's extremely sweet. That's an extremely sweet way to meet. But yes, they both really supported my interests, which was huge. At that time in public school, in the third grade, you could rent an instrument for $10 a year. So everyone was able to learn the violin or a string instrument. And that's how I play music, was because of that program.
Mm.
And they were like, okay, yeah, you can study this. You would expect parents to say that, but some wouldn't want the caterwauling of a, violin sounds like a cat dying for a long time. It does.
Yeah. Were you drawn to the violin for any reason, or was that the instrument that was just available to you?
I think it was just the smallest one, so it was the most portable.
Okay.
They offered violin, viola, cello, and bass, and I was like, yeah, I want the little one.
Right.
I'm glad I did. Jesus.
Do you have any memories of seeing your parents sing in their choirs? Were they still doing it as you were growing up?
Maybe a little bit. My dad did it for much longer. Yeah, I do remember a little bit more my dad because he did it for longer. There was a piano. We had just an upright piano, and they would play old American songs sometimes and stuff like this. Mm-hmm. And I actually still have that piano and have written everything I've written on that piano.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's really nice to have that piano. It's really special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's obviously either whether it's pulling you towards music or you were already going to head in that direction anyway. But, you've spoken of loving classical music at quite an early age. I think Mahler's Resurrection Symphony was one of your favorite tracks when you were 13. Not many 13-year-olds I know sort of gravitate towards that sort of music. Why do you think it struck a chord with you?
Well, I mean, the the repertoire of, the violin, you're not learning how to play jazz, unfortunately,
Sure.
in elementary school and in school at all. So unless you choose a band instrument in high school, but I had already started violin, and somehow people seemed to think I could play it. So I really liked playing it. So I was listening to so much music, so much punk rock and Hendrix and Zeppelin and, and like Joni Mitchell, all across the boards. But I mean, there is nothing more dramatic and more grandiose than Mahler.
Right.
I mean, that's like the Zeppelin of that time.
Sure.
It is.
Yeah.
It's so over the top, and it's perfect for, I think I might have been 14. I was a freshman in high school. And I mean, it's the perfect music for that age where you're angsty, you're full of hormones, everything's racing around in there. You don't even know why you're mad, but you're sure you're right to be mad, and like, it's like, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. I mean, it's like perfect music for that. It's like, it sounds like metal.
Right.
It really does. So, I mean, I didn't see all that much difference.
Okay.
In the, I loved Bartok, and I mean, I loved all of that really sometimes weird but very dramatic music. I mean, I also love Bach too. I mean, all of it is so good.
Sure.
You can't not love it. When you play it, you can't not love it because it's extraordinary music. Also, playing in an orchestral setting,
right.
I mean, that is a way to feel like there is something larger. Yeah. Like that is a way to like believe in God, like God as music or whatever, like playing in that, making this thing happen together, 100 people on stage, that is a way to really feel connected. Yeah,
absolutely. But you also loved the Pixies. You also loved Bad Brains. You loved that kind of when you were just describing Mahler and the drama of it, I can hear some of that in Bad Brains. Obviously a lot more simple, but the energy and the aggression is there. That was the music that you gravitated towards as a teen, and you would go to see some of those hardcore punk shows as well?
I mean, every weekend.
Really?
Oh yeah, every weekend. And then also like the hardcore matinees at CBGB's. I mean,
wow. Who did you see there?
I probably saw 200 hardcore shows. Oh, God. I mean, all of the bands that were happening at that time, I mean, I saw The Fall with Bricks playing.
Right.
That was amazing. I mean, Sonic Youth a bunch of times. But then, like, just a jillion hardcore bands with, like, a bunch of boys. I mean, that is really, I mean, a lot of them were really amazing.
Yeah.
Fugazi was happening then. They're incredible. And these bands like 76% Uncertain,
okay.
That was like a local band. They're amazing. It's like, that's also a fun thing because it's people that like just put bands together in their basements and then just like do shows and go on little tours, play like 5 shows around the area.
Yeah.
It's DIY to the max.
So how did that shape you as a teenager, do you think? What kind of teenager were you?
Oh, God. Well, I was the only teenager with a white mohawk playing the violin.
Okay.
That's for sure.
How did your orchestra, I guess, conductor or whoever organized it, how did they take that?
There was nothing to take. They couldn't change my hair.
That's true.
So I mean, it's funny. My mom didn't love my hair, but she also was really angry that she felt that I was like sort of sometimes demoted because of my hair. It's a really funny contradiction. Yeah. 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 It's great.
After the break, Joan talks about touring with the Dambuilders, the music scene in the 90s, and the birth of Joan As Policewoman. Welcome back to Humans of Music and my interview with Joan As Policewoman. Before the break, Joan was talking about being the only teenager with a white mohawk who was also playing violin. And it reminded me of something I'd read in a previous interview where she said her dad never judged her as a teenager. She wrote about her father in the song What Was It Like of her 2018 album Damn Devotion, singing the line, "You showed me how to live." We pick up the conversation talking about Joan's father.
Yeah, he was really an extraordinary person. He didn't not only not judge me, he just didn't, that is not how he proceeded through life. Like he did not see the world as a place to make, judgment calls on at all. Like, and it was a very stark difference with my mom. So it was very pronounced that he did not do that. And she really had a lot to say about a lot of people, which that's fine too. It was so incredible to be around someone like him who just, that would never enter his mind at all. I mean, yes, he was a scientist, but he was very, very gentle person. Mm. He was just always trying to help out with whatever it was. And I feel like my parents were very, very, like really atheists, but I feel like my father had a bit of just a natural Buddhist in him.
Okay.
He just wanted like to avoid confrontation and just, what is the easiest way out of this?
Right.
With the least amount of feather rufflings,
Yeah.
And it was that was a really nice thing to experience, especially in light of like my mom and I just fought every single day before I left the house, and then never made up. She never wanted to make up. She was like, "Nope, door closed."
Wow.
So yeah. So I was really glad I had my dad. That's for sure.
Which one? Which temperament do you think you inherited more?
Oh, I have them both. Absolutely. I have them both. And also after meeting my biological parents, I also have their stuff too. Like it just was in me already.
Okay.
So yeah, I have a whole jambalaya in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just quickly about meeting your biological parents. At what age did you do that? And at what age did you become aware that you were adopted?
Oh, well, my parents always told us my brother is also adopted, always told us from the very beginning, which is the way to do it, so that you're not having to bestow this strange thing upon a child that isn't actually strange when you grow up knowing it. I mean, so yes, my brother and I always knew. Also, I mean, it would have been pretty obvious. Neither my brother nor I look anything like our parents, but no matter. So I met my mom when I was 20 and my dad when I was 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did that complete any circle for you or answer any questions, or was it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I really lucked out. I became really good friends with both of them and their families. And it all really, it was like, I was very fortunate.
Great.
In that way.
Great.
Yeah.
So when you went to study music at Boston University, was that was the logical progression for you? There was no other, or were there any other career options you were weighing up?
I was really interested in anthropology.
Oh, okay.
So I did study that at school as well, but I really wanted to just study music. It was the place, it was cool. My mother, when, because they sort of they want you to decide what you want to do before you're out of high school. And, she said, well, you're definitely the happiest when you're making music.
Right.
So you should do that. She said it's probably not going to be the easiest road, but if you are happy doing it, it will be the right choice,
Right.
Which she's absolutely right. That was great advice from a person that was really hard to get along with. Yeah.
So she was as accepting of your decision because I don't think you quit that course, but you left for a bit to do the Dambuilders. Is that right? But you still graduated?
Oh yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
Right.
That was the only thing they cared about. So yeah,
Okay.
I had to make sure I graduated. Yeah.
Right. What was the Dambuilders? Such an incredible time in music history. That I guess that mid 90s for someone of my age anyway. That mid 90s indie alternative kind of time.
Yeah.
So much exciting music, and it always felt like there was so much possibility from the outside.
Yeah.
At the kind of music that was created. Is that how it felt from the inside?
Yeah, it really did. People were just doing their own thing. And there were just so many different kinds of bands and ways of doing things. And yeah, it did feel really exciting. We'd come out of so much like synth music and stuff from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And then people, really returned to like playing instruments but then just combine. It was like, how can we combine everything we got in all these different ways? And it was really exciting time.
Yeah. Would that have been your first experience of touring?
Oh yeah. I started touring with them. I joined them in 1990 when I was 20. And then we started touring pretty shortly after that. And yeah, the first tours, it sort of makes sense. But the first tours were in Germany. And we were on this like little label based out of Munster.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we toured Germany and the UK and some and Sweden. Just like, it was really fun. I remember being in East Germany shortly after the wall came down.
Right.
And playing in clubs where in West Germany, everyone sort of looked basically like, people in America. And then we'd play the clubs in East Germany. And to me at the time, everyone looked like they were in the Scorpions. It was just a totally different look. It was an amazing look. And It was like highly curated and really cool.
Yep.
But it was so different. And so that was really fun.
Yeah.
That was really fun to experience. Yeah.
What an education. Did that change your perspective on, was that your first time overseas?
No, I'd been there with my parents and stuff,
Okay.
but like that was my first time. I was 20, so yeah.
What did you learn about touring in a rock and roll band? How to survive it?
When you're 20, you can survive anything.
True.
You can do anything. You can sleep on any floor and be fine and not even look fucked up. It's like you're so resilient at that time. We had so much fun. It was just so much fun. It definitely, yeah, it's crazy. Being on tour is crazy. It is a crazy thing to do. But it's I've been doing it now since then. So there's something
right.
about it I love.
Yeah. But did you learn anything on those early tours that still sticks with you to this day? Just to even how to keep your mental health on the road when you're traveling?
I think I dealt with mental health mostly through drinking. I think that's how everyone did sort of at that time.
Right.
It's sort of like, just pour some alcohol on it and you'll feel better or else you'll feel different or forget.
Okay.
any of that worked at that time. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of health. There was it was a big stress on like healthy, but yeah.
So when that band came to an end, I think it was 1998. What was your plan? What did you think my next step will be?
I don't think I've ever really had a plan. Like I don't think I live my life with plans like that. I sort of just allow things to happen, or I just find the next thing organically somehow. I had started doing a lot of session work here in New York City.
Yeah.
And so I was doing that. And I had also joined a band that Dave Schaus from the Grifters had put together called Those Bastard Souls.
Yeah.
And in that band was like Fred Armisen was playing drums, Stephen Drozd from The Lips was playing guitar and keys and stuff. So that band, we had made a record. We did a bunch of touring in 96, 97, made some more stuff, kept going through there. Then I joined, in 1999, I joined Antony and the Johnsons.
Yeah.
And then we made some records and did some shows. I mean, did a lot of shows in New York City. I just like followed, and I started writing music. I'd picked up the guitar, had started writing music, had started trying to sing, although no one was going to be hearing it for maybe ever at that time.
Right.
Yeah, but did everything that was offered to me pretty much.
Sure. I mean, that act of learning to sing, I think I've seen you talk about the fact that you pretty much learned by doing it in front of people, by just getting up and doing it and touring and playing and learning. That must have taken a lot of guts. That's a pretty gutsy thing to get up and do. Did you feel like you were really putting yourself out there by singing in front of people?
Yep. It was super uncomfortable. I felt absolutely vulnerable in a way that I was very different. It was really, it felt like I was just, it was really hard. It was really hard. And, but I had to do it. I had to do it. So I just kept doing it. And, I got a lot of support from musician friends that I really admired. And I'll never be able to thank them enough because, getting that kind of support really means a lot when you're feeling extremely insecure and just unsure. That was Antony was very helpful in helping me feel like I was doing the right thing. And then a whole group of people that aren't well known but are precious to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned Antony and the Johnsons, and I've seen you say that joining that band saved your life. What did that band offer you at that point?
Quietness and spaciousness, and a singer who sounded like she was crying the whole time, which I really needed. Yeah, and a very caring. It's just soft music. I had not been making soft music at all, but I had started writing soft music. So then when I joined that band, it went along with that. And I thought, oh, this is actually okay to be doing, to be making soft music.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So super pivotal for what you've gone on to do.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. But it was just more the feeling of family in that band. It was very nurturing.
How long was the time between you starting to write songs and then you actually releasing them as Joan As Policewoman?
Well, I started to write songs in maybe like 96 or something. I put a band we formed a band after Jeff died called Black Beetle of like a couple of his bandmates and I, pretty much just to try to stay alive. It was like to help each other, like just not die. So that's when we all started trying to figure out how to write songs. Michael Ty, Parker Kindred, and then Oren Blodow played bass with us for a while, and then this incredible bass player named Dadi Bobra from Haiti joined our band. But that's when I started writing songs. We did lots of recordings. We were going to release all of this, and it just sort of like, that band just sort of like blew up because we had gotten together under like an incredibly traumatic experience, and it just wasn't sustainable.
Sure.
And then I started writing songs on my own and just playing solo.
Right. And then when you finally release your first EP as Joan As Policewoman in 2005, and then Real Life in 2006, and it's a critical hit. Were you ready for that attention and that adulation?
I was surprised, that people liked it. It all happened in a way that felt quite natural, and I was just on tour forever. So it just sort of happened that like just a little bit more people I would be here, and then a little bit more. And that also helped me feel like, first of all, I was doing the right thing, which is a nice feeling. And then also people could relate to what I was singing about. And so that right there just helped me feel less lonely.
When you say it helped you feel like you were doing the right thing, did you doubt it? Had you doubts that you were doing the right thing?
No, I just knew I had to do it. Like, it wasn't a question. I had to make a record. I had to put it out. But then when people responded to it, I thought, wow, okay, there's some hole in the market or whatever in the universe that I'm filling. And that just felt really nice.
Yeah. And 15 years on, that album is still regarded as its legend grows as the years go on. Were you aware when you were making it? I mean, I think questions about hindsight are always slightly odd, but did you have a feeling when you were making it that you were making something that would resonate?
I knew my friends and my family would hear it.
That's it.
I just didn't know past that. I really liked what I was doing. And I wanted to make an Al Green record. That's what I wanted to do. That's what that record is for me. I know it doesn't sound like an Al Green record, but that's like that's where my head was. Like, I have to make my version of that. And yeah, I just did my best. I did it with these people here. And
right.
Yeah.
That connection, once you find a collaborator or people that you love working with, do you try to maintain that connection?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an extremely loyal person. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, I've been here for 18 years now.
Wow. Okay. Just before we finish up, Jaxsta is all about giving credit where credit is due. Are there people that you would give credit to for helping you get where you are today?
Oh my God, yes. So Hal Wellner, who passed away in April of 2020, he really changed my life. And just the way that he put people together in a collaboration that were very unique combinations was something like watching a magician. Stephen Bernstein, who is an incredible trumpet player here in New York City and who runs a number of bands, and who I did a recording session with at Electric Ladyland in 95 or something. And we just hit it off. And I wrote my number down, Joan violin, and then he started calling me for gigs, for subs, for subbing gigs. And these were jazz gigs. I'm not a jazz player.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, "Can you read charts?" I'm like, "Well, no." "Okay, great. You coming down? It's at 8:00 on Wednesday." And like the other guys in the band just would like help me through because I could read music, and I did do some improvising, but like he just like gave me gigs I shouldn't have had.
Right.
Because he really thought that I could do it. And, Bryce Goggin, who owns the studio, I mean, I met him when I was mixing a record with that band with Dave Schaus, Those Bastard Souls, maybe in like 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And we were mixing over at Water Music in Hoboken. And he said, I loved the way he worked. He was totally humble, which is clearly something I hadn't experienced so far in making records, which, you know, I don't know what that says about other people. But he would try something out, and then when it didn't work, he would just throw it out and it'd be done. And like, I had never experienced that. He was not precious at all. Just like, let's make the music the best. And just very calm his whole way, very dry humor, which I love. And he said, you know, hey, Joan, so you making your own music? And I was like horrified. I was like, yeah, but I'm not, you know, I don't know what I'm doing, you know? And he said, okay, well, you know, when you get some songs together, you know, come record them with me.
Nice.
And I remember being like, and, you know, this is when we were still writing our phone numbers down on pieces of paper. So in 2003, 3 years later, when I had 5 songs written, and I had a drummer, Ben Porowski, and bass player. Actually, she wasn't in the band yet. Oren Blodow played bass, I think, on that EP. Maybe she played one song. I'm not sure. But when I found that piece of paper, and I was like, hey, Bryce, do you remember me? You know, and he said, come on down. And we recorded, you know, and that was my first recording session. Nice. So he really, and he also told me, you're on the right path, kid.
That's so important.
So important.
Yeah.
You know, and he had made all the Pavement records, and he had made, you know, he's like, was someone that was really, like, I really looked up to.
Yeah.
So that was major. I mean, yeah. I mean, those 3 people really. I also just got to say, the drummer that I've worked with forever, Parker Kindred, mm-hmm. he is my brother, and he is just one of the great musical minds. He's a drummer, but he's also, he really hears music in a way that we really like. It's a beautiful thing to make music. Nice. With him. So, yeah.
That's great. Joan, thanks so much for your time. So lovely to talk to you. I really appreciate it.
This has been wonderful.
And that's it for another episode of Humans of Music. A big thanks to Joan for her time, and thank you for listening. Just a reminder that Joan's new album, The Solution Is Restless, is out now. If you have any feedback on the show or suggestions on who you'd like me to interview, or even if you just want to say hello, please drop me a line at humansofmusic@jaxsta.com. That's humansofmusic, one word, at Jaxsta, JAXSTA.com. This episode was mixed by Lachlan Mitchell from Parliament Studios in Annandale, and the incidental music and theme song were written and performed by Sam Lockwood. Please remember to subscribe to the Humans of Music podcast so you never miss an episode, or even better, share it amongst your friends and rate and review it. And remember, next time you need to know who wrote a song, who produced a song, who engineered it, who played on it, who sang on it, who did anything on it, head to Jaxsta.com for all your official music credit information. Until the next episode of Humans of Music, I'm Rod Yates. Thanks for listening.